Abby, it's Monday, and today I'm doing a double book review. Both of the books we're talking about today are young adult sci-fi with very heavy social commentary, so strap on your philosophy helmets and get ready for alien statues and gray oblong pills from Japan. Up first, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. In this book, a graphic designer named April May, who lives in Manhattan, is walking home to her apartment at 3 o'clock in the morning when she comes across a weird statue sitting on the street, a 10-foot metal transformer wearing samurai armor. April assumes it's just another art project that someone made, which isn't an uncommon thing in New York City. Statues like this will get one local news report and then be forgotten forever. As such, most of the people on the street are just ignoring the statue. But for whatever reason, April decides that the statue deserves more attention, so she calls up her friend Andy, who happens to be an amateur YouTuber, and has him bring over a bunch of cameras and mics and stuff. The two record a short video in which the extremely sleep-deprived April decides on a whim to name the statue Carl, and Andy posts it to his channel for the heck of it, not expecting it to get any attention whatsoever. But on that same night, 63 other Carls appeared in major cities all over the world, and because Andy and April were the first people to publish anything about the Karlas, they became famous overnight, which they think is a very good thing. At first. However, April soon learns that being internationally known isn't always a great thing, and being famous begins to change her personality, her friendships, her relationship with her girlfriend Maya, and eventually it even begins to threaten her physical safety. Alongside April's personal struggles, the entire world begins to change once everyone realizes that the Karlas are not from this earth. And they want something. April believes that the Karlas are here to just unite humanity and bring it together through their tests, but others believe that the Karlas are here to threaten us instead. April sees these other people as nothing but fearmongers, so she puts her all into fighting them without realizing that by fighting fire with fire, all she's gonna end up doing is stoking the flames from a different side. The fact that fame is kind of a double-edged sword has been a pretty broadly covered topic in our media, especially in books, but An Absolutely Remarkable Thing doesn't feel stale at all. Part of it is obviously the sci-fi twist, but I think also part of it is that Hank Green is a ridiculously popular YouTuber, and whenever he talks about April and Andy writing a video for their YouTube channel, you can 100% tell that Hank is writing from experience, and that makes me wonder what else in this book comes from his personal experience, and then I feel really bad for him. Sorry, Hank. The thing that really gets me in regards to that aspect of this book is how easy April finds it to convert herself from a person into a brand. Because she, Andy, and Maya are all design majors, so they know a good deal about marketing and branding. So April just very easily turns herself from graphic designer living with her girlfriend in Manhattan to the innocent Earth girl who just wants to defend the Karlas and show everyone that they're here for good. This escalates even more when she gets an agent, and among the many terrible things that that agent does is convince April to start repressing aspects of her sexuality. April is openly bisexual, but her agent asks that she publicly performs being either just straight or just gay, and she makes it clear that she has nothing against April being bi. She thinks bi people are just fine, but it's harder for her to market a quirky bi girl than it is a quirky lesbian, so April becomes a quirky lesbian. There are a lot of similar scenarios throughout the book, some subtle and some very not subtle, and sometimes you feel really bad for April because you know that she's just caught up in fame and she doesn't know what she's doing, and other times you want to drop kick her in the face because of how stupid she's acting. April is a likable lead character in my opinion. She does make some pretty stupid decisions sometimes, but most of them either have good intentions or are driven by her intense self-hatred, and like considering that I am also an artist who hates herself and sometimes does incredibly stupid things because of it, I'm really not in any place to judge. However, throughout the book, it's like there are two Aprils. There's the nice young woman who knows a lot about the Karlas, and there's the emotional mess who is incredibly rude to her girlfriend and kind of has no idea what the frick she's doing. The two bleed together pretty quickly to the point where by the end of the book, you're really not sure what April's characterization even is anymore. I could see how this might taint the reader's ability to like April as a character, but A, I still liked her, even despite her stupid decision-making skills. But then again, my favorite founding father is Alexander Hamilton, and he did a lot of stupid stuff in his lifetime, so, like, maybe I'm just not a very good judge of these things. And B, is that not the entire point of the novel? As for other characters, we have Andy Scamped, April's best friend and amateur YouTuber. He's kind of a massive dork. To give you an idea, he and his friend make a podcast in which they talk exclusively about the deaths of characters on TV shows. For some reason. Although, he does really care a lot about his friends, and though he is usually pretty meek, he can be brave when it matters. He's been kind of in love with April since college, but he knows that April doesn't like him back, so he's just kind of stuck in this awful, perpetual loop of never being able to admit his feelings. Maya is April's girlfriend, who also happens to be her roommate. They don't consider each other to be living together because it's a long story, just read the book. Anyway, she is a lot less impulsive and loud than April, so they really do balance each other out quite a bit. She is also a graphic designer, and we learn early on that she has anxiety issues, but we never see them becoming a huge problem for her, which I think is awesome, because we need to remind people like myself struggling with mental issues that the majority of people who experience them can, for the most part, get through life alright. Everything will be fine. You are needed. You are loved. Everything is gonna be okay. April and Maya are cute. But because April dislikes herself so much, she can't fathom why Maya likes her, so she acts indifferent to her affections, which makes Maya think that she's done something wrong to offend her, so there's just constantly this gigantic rift between them that neither of them wants to talk about, but becomes more and more evident as April becomes more and more famous. Robin is April's personal assistant that she gets after she gets her agent. He is very calm, practical, efficient. Basically, his characterization is just everything that you could possibly want out of a good assistant, even down to his physical appearance, because April finds him very attractive and tries to flirt with him quite often. Though there are more characters, the last of them that I'm going to go over is Miranda. She is a materials scientist at the University of California, Berkeley, and she is very smart and upbeat, but very socially awkward. When she first watched the original Carl video, she noticed that the characteristics of the metal Carl was made out of didn't match up with any metal that was known on Earth to exist, so she emailed April to get more information, and they became friends through that. Miranda is the first character who suggests that the Karls may be extraterrestrial in nature, a theory which ends up being correct. The Karls are the best part of this entire book, but they're going to be the thing that I talk about the least in this video because I don't want to spoil hardly anything about them. I will tell you that the Karls present humanity with a bunch of puzzles to solve, and they are fascinating to read about. I feel like the author had to do a lot of very hyper-specific research just to come up with ideas for the puzzles, because they all require you to, like, know how the Mayan number system works, or, like, speak a very specific dialect of a very specific language, or, like, know all of the words to call me maybe. Even better than the puzzles the Karls make are all of the questions that rise from their appearance. April believes that since the Karls aren't actively trying to harm us right now, they probably didn't come to Earth with any ill intent, right? However, other people do not see this the same way, and April comes into conflict with these people a lot. As a result, this book creates a very strong allegory for a lot of the discourse that often takes place on the internet, especially when pertaining to politics. April sees all of the members of the other group as being motivated by only fear and anger, and while this is somewhat true for some of its members, April never bothers to ask if any of the points that they raise are worth considering. Instead, she just dedicates her free time to shutting down these people constantly, and while she does this, she just fills herself with fear and anger, the exact thing she was trying to stop, and pretty soon everyone is just angry and afraid, and literally nothing has been accomplished. And just because of that message alone, I think we can all think of a lot of people who really need to read this book. However, I must acknowledge that this book is not perfect. It's really good, but it's not perfect. I feel like some of the aspects of April's personality transition could have used a little more elaboration. Like, you're told enough that you can figure it out yourself, but I wish that sometimes, instead of just being told what April's new personality is like, we actually got to see a little bit more of it. Like, we see enough, but I could have used just a little bit more. But to be fair, there is a bit of an in-universe explanation for this. Like, the story is told in first person, and April does seem to be talking to someone, but we're never outright told who she's telling the story to. However, to me, it seems like she's writing this book for people in her universe to read, and because she's famous there, she wouldn't have to elaborate as much on her projected personality for obvious reasons. Also, nitpick time. There's a part in the story where April sees someone's username on a website, and she's like, oh my gosh, it's such and such, and then she proceeds to tell us the entire story behind such and such's username thing, and it's just really awkward and breaks the flow of the story. But the thing is, that character has been around since the beginning of the book, so I don't know why the author couldn't have taken the explanation for the username and introduced it earlier at the beginning of the story, so that way when April sees the username on the website, she and the reader at the same time realize that it's such and such, and then it would have been much better and not broken the flow of the story. Okay, nitpick over. Final thoughts. This book is awesome, it's great, and you need to read it, so I give it 64 Karls out of 64. And now, our other book for the evening, afternoon, morning, whenever you're watching this, Be More Chill by Ned Vizzini. And before you ask, no, I am not going to be bringing up comparisons to the musical in this video. I have talked about the musical enough on this channel. This is a review of this book and this book alone. Jeremy here is your average, disheveled, awkward, self-loathing dork who spends all of his time admiring the cool kids, wishing the hot girls would notice him, and wallowing in self-pity. However, Jeremy has gone above and beyond with this as he started keeping humiliation sheets, which are these papers in which he writes down literally anything that anyone does that he considers detrimental to his social status, such as, like, someone not saying hi to him in the hallway. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Jeremy's entire character is supposed to be one gigantic allegory for social anxiety, but anyway, Jeremy decides to solve his problem by taking drugs, specifically a pill with a tiny supercomputer inside it called a squip. The squip talks to him in his head with the voice of Keanu Reeves, because why not? And it tells him how to talk and dress and who to be friends with so that he can be cool, rule the school, and get laid. It's fun at first, but he quickly learns that even though the squip claims that its quantum processors are flawless, there are some aspects of human social interaction that computers can't perfect just yet. The first thing you need to know about this book before reading it is that it was published in 2004. And it is very 2004 to the point where I feel the need to take a second in this review to just explain some of the pop culture references in this book, because I didn't get half of them until I googled them. First off, the whole squip talking with Keanu's voice thing. In the movie The Matrix, Keanu Reeves plays this guy who is a professional computer hacker, and he, like, apparently learns that all of life is just a simulation by robots, or something. I haven't watched The Matrix, I don't freaking know. Anyway, the point is Keanu Reeves was considered cool at this time in human history, and also it's probably supposed to be some kind of metaphor with, like, the squip taking over Jeremy's life. The book frequently references this one show on MTV, which in the 2000s was well known for its trashy reality TV shows. Most of them were dating shows, but there were some others. They were all aimed at teenagers, and they all featured supposedly attractive people running around in skimpy outfits and, like, cheating on each other a whole bunch and just generally being terrible people. The show most frequently brought up in the book is Dismissed, in which a person goes on a date with two other people, and at the end of the episode, they have to choose one to date, and the other person gets dismissed. Most amusingly, the squip often talks about how rap/hip-hop is the dominant music of youth culture. Which, I mean, as funny as that sounds to us now, that was actually an accurate statement at the time when this book was written. There's also a minor subplot featuring Eminem. Basically, he was this rapper guy, and he, like, wrote a song about how could the real Slim Shady please stand up or something. Yeah. However, an unfortunate side effect of this book's 2004-ness is that we all get to read about some mild homophobia. Fun, it's not fun. In the author's defense, from everything that I've heard about him, he seemed like a pretty decent human being. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and just assume that he's not actually homophobic and that he was just trying to express how teenagers talked and behaved in the early 2000s, and unfortunately there was a lot of homophobia thrown around at that time. That doesn't make it any less painful to read, though. The word gay is often used multiple times as a derogatory term, and it's often used to put Jeremy down for not having a girlfriend. Like, Jeremy tells his dad that he's going to a school dance, and then his dad's like, oh, are you going with a girl? And Jeremy's like, no. So then his dad sarcastically asks him if he's gay. And later, the squib keeps trying to set Jeremy up with girls that he's not actually attracted to, but will supposedly increase his social status or whatever. So then when Jeremy says he doesn't want to be with those girls, the squib asks him, are you really gay? The school's play director, Mr. Reyes, is a flamboyantly gay stereotype. Because of course he is. And when the students first meet him, one of them feels compelled to say, damn, this dude is fruit-deliciously homo-rific. I'm sorry, but I refuse to believe that people in 2004 actually talked like that. The squib notes that upon first entering Jeremy's brain, I learned the basics of your quantum status in this universe, Jeremy. I learned how much money you have and whether or not you were gay. I'm still getting filled in on details. So the squib is aware of the painful fact that in our society, your sexuality does influence how popular you are. Jeremy goes on to ask the squib, what if I were gay? And the squib responds, I teach you how to meet guys. It's easier. Easier than what? I'm assuming it just means that meeting guys is easier than meeting girls. But, I mean, since it doesn't clarify, I'm mildly afraid for any queer people who may have taken squibs in the past. The second thing you need to know about this book is that it talks about sex very frankly and very frequently, to the point where it can get somewhat uncomfortable at times. This book has 2 sex scenes, and, like, they're not the most graphic things to have ever been committed to paper or anything like that, but, like, there's still more than what you see out of most young adult books. Jeremy spends a lot of his free time masturbating. Fortunately, the book does not force you to read about most of this, but, like, it's still a depressingly large part of his characterization. Because Jeremy is the type of character who hates himself for not having a girlfriend yet, and the book is told in first person, a lot of the female characters in the book have their physical appearance very heavily emphasized, to the point where it kind of borders on objectification. There are these free girls that Jeremy literally calls the hot girls, like, capitalized, and being attractive, promiscuous, and cool is like 95% of their personalities. Jeremy even notes that they are a force to be reckoned with, discussed, analyzed, and penetrated by the upper echelon of Middleborough men. The only one of them that I would consider even a mildly developed character is Stephanie, and she's literally only in one scene. It's a great scene. In my opinion, it's the best scene in the entire book. But she's literally just in that one scene, and then she never appears again, and she serves very little purpose to the overall story. It's also worth noting that at one point, the squib tells Jeremy to never be mean to any girls. Unless they're ugly. Jeremy's crush, Christine, certainly has more personality than the hot girls, but even she suffers from the objectification a little bit too. I just look at her and think about her a lot, because she's beautiful, you know? I mean, she's intelligent and sweet and everything else that a girl is supposed to be to offset her beauty, but even if she were idiotic and mean, she'd still be beautiful and I'd still be contorted. That's not shallow at all, Jeremy. Like the gay comments, I can forgive the book for this because I'm fairly certain that it's not perpetuating this behavior. It's trying to point out that it's wrong and unhealthy, but it's still just, it still makes you nervous to read about it. But I think that's kind of the point of the entire book. Despite the fact that I keep saying how uncomfortable this book is to read, I think it's really freaking good, and I think it's really freaking underrated. It's been getting more attention because of the musical, but honestly, it's still underrated. I literally got this book for this Christmas of this year, and I've already read it twice. And it got better the second time through, and I got so into it on that second reading that I read the entire thing in one day. Because the book is so frank and honest when talking about social interactions and sex and pop culture and how those things affect the teenage psyche, it just feels very authentic and real to read despite the bizarre concept and dated pop culture references. The squib is very obviously a metaphor for peer pressure and potentially even Jeremy's own social anxiety, and that's what really sells you on the concept. Jeremy's constant yearning to be cool and have a girlfriend and the things that he does to accomplish those goals is things that people often wish for and do sometimes do. And although not all of the negative consequences that Jeremy experiences in this book will happen to everyone, a lot of them can and will have the possibility to happen to teenagers. The squib is also a social commentary on rapidly advancing technology and how it could either help us or end up ruining our lives. But before you think that this is a book about how all technology is evil and robots are planning to take over the world, I will have you note that Jeremy is never actually explicitly forced to do anything that the squib tells him to do. The final call always comes down to him. The squib does often try to emotionally manipulate Jeremy into doing what it wants, but the final decision is always comes down to Jeremy, and he often does directly disobey the squib's orders. No matter how far technology advances, it will always be up to us to make the final judgment call, and it's our responsibility to keep our heads on straight as AI continues to grow and advance. There are so many great social commentaries in this book that I almost don't want to read you any of the really impactful scenes because I don't want to spoil them for you. I want you to experience them for yourselves. But just to give you an idea of what this book does sometimes to you, I will read you just one. The squib asks, "What is your favorite food, Jeremy?" "Double Delight Oreos with peanut butter and chocolate cream," I answer. "That's easy." "Okay, with milk." "Obviously." "So, let's try something." "What?" "Keep your peanut butter Oreos by the TV. Whenever you see someone with a built, healthy body on any program, like right now, you do a push-up. Whenever you see someone with a sort of large, palsy-ish head like yours and a skinny paper body like yours, you eat a cookie." "Okay, I do as I'm told. I find quickly that when you watch TV with these restrictions, you eat so few cookies and do so many push-ups that you might as well just lie on the floor. So I do. I get buff in 2 weeks." The book constantly points out all of the negative aspects of pop culture and all of the horrible, unhealthy messages that they're promoting to teenagers, and it's like, hey, maybe we should, stop telling teenagers that this is okay, and, stop objectifying girls, and stop telling guys that they have to be a super competitive macho alpha male in order to, deserve existing. And, maybe we should all just, treat each other like actual human beings and not just blobs to reproduce with. And, I think those are messages that all of us can get behind. I will say that the book's one weak point is its characters. Most of them are either completely flat or they're just not enjoyable to read about. Although, in the book's defense, I don't think it's really supposed to be about its characters. They're more of just a vessel to deliver the social commentary through, and it's also part of the whole teenagers should stop dehumanizing each other message. But, if you're a person who really likes character-focused writing, this book is gonna frustrate you a bit. Most of the characters can have their entire personality summed up in one sentence. Jeremy is a self-loathing dork who's really horny, and then, by the end, maybe he learns to stop hating himself so much. The ending's kind of ambiguous. Michael is Jeremy's best friend who's antisocial and has a thing for Asian girls. Jake is Christine's boyfriend who is, promoted as this paragon of high school awesomeness, but, all he ever really does in the story is just kind of glare at Jeremy a whole bunch whenever he dares to talk to Christine. Katrina's the preppy hot girl. Stephanie is the emo hot girl, though as I mentioned, she does get more developed later on. And Chloe is the raver hot girl. Brooke is the girl that Jeremy smoked pot with one time, and then he got to second base with her, and then she literally never appears in the story again. Need I go on? The most developed characters are Rich and Christine, which is unfortunate for me because I find Christine to be quite annoying and hypocritical, but, at the very least, we do at least have a basic understanding of her outlook on the universe and, her family life and stuff, which is more than you can say for, 90% of the characters. Rich is this kid who also has a squib, and when we first meet him, he's a real bully to Jeremy, but then later he is the person who actually tells Jeremy about the squib and where to get one, and we learn that despite all of the work that his squip did for him, he's still kind of a dork underneath it all, though he does his best to repress his more dorky side, so he's got like a whole dramatic internal conflict going on. So yeah, pretty lackluster characterization overall, but I still stand by my assessment that the characters are not actually super important to the book and that it is still a masterpiece. Overall final assessment, this book is amazing, and despite its dated pop culture references and its one-dimensional characters, its social commentaries are still and probably will always be extremely relevant to teenage culture, and it's just a lot of great messages all around, and yes, reading it can make you kind of uncomfortable, but like, that's the entire point of literature. I give Be More Chill 5 gray oblong pills out of 5. Abby, I'll see you on Friday. I don't feel like reshooting this, so we're just gonna go with that.